One of the most common subjects asked in the questions I get is about guests and guest passes and how they're treated here in the villages. That's what we're going to talk about, all those rules and regulations. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Rusty Nelson and welcome down here in the villages, especially if you are a guest. But if it is your first time or you're coming down here as a guest of somebody that lives here, there are certain restrictions, age restrictions, and certain things you can and can't do, and that's what we're going to go over. Also go over how you actually go about getting a guest pass, where you can pick those guest passes up. And also, there's a couple little tricky things I learned about age and golf carts that are going to come up here, and I'll kind of mention those towards the end. But first off, let's just go and take a look at one of the places that you can actually find out some information about guest passes. That's right. We are over at one of my favorite pages and one of my favorite places because you learn a lot right here. And this is districtgov.org. If you're not familiar with this, I highly suggest, because you're going to learn so much on here. And as we all know and try to tell people, the Villages is a lot bigger than you could ever imagine. So this is a site that you really want to become familiar with. I highly suggest you grab your beverage of choice and sit back and relax one night and kind of poke around in here. I promise you, you're not going to be able to remember everything you saw exactly, but you're going to kind of know it's there and you'll be able to go back and reference it. But today, let's take a look at the guest pass information, and how you get there is to jump onto this site, go over across the top. This is the landing page we're on right now. Go down to, and I know because it took me a while to figure this one out. You go down to recreation. You think they'd have guest passes on here, like blatantly right in your face. But hit recreation, and you're going to come to this. And you look on quick links on the side. Now, get me the heck off of here, because you don't have to see my mug on here anymore. And over on the left-hand side, you're going to see guest information, and go to guest ID information. And this is a lot of the information that you're going to need to know on here. And I'm not going to read every little thing on here, but the first part of this is the top part. And this is where you can actually go to get guest passes or information 7 days a week. Now, it is a little tricky. If you're going to get guest passes, Monday through Friday, you can just about go to all these major rec centers. On Saturdays and Sundays, you can only go to the ones that you see right here: La Hacienda, Lake Meona, Eisenhower, Rohan, Everglades Regional Centers only. And that is where you can apply for a guest pass. Now, I will flick up on the page right here a shot of the form that you actually have to fill out if you decide to go there. Also, there are some age restrictions on here that you probably should take a look at and really read this, because all of this information right here is really important. It says guests of the villages. We're talking about right in here right now. Guests of the villages residents whose home address is outside Lake Sumter and Marion counties are eligible to use selected villages residents amenity supported recreational facilities. Now, let me try to translate this really quick for you, because it's kind of said backwards. Basically, you cannot have a guest pass if you live in Lake Sumter and Marion counties, a guest pass from a resident. And the reason is because that prevents people that live in the next, say, 55 or over community coming in and using all of our facilities. It also has to do with people that actually rent their homes out, say, for 3 months. They have to surrender their resident ID, and that prevents somebody from going out and actually inviting them back in and using it after they've surrendered their ID. Unless you are actually a relative, in other words, a grandson, granddaughter, or son or daughter of somebody that actually lives in the villages, then obviously you come and have a guest pass. Now, if you look right underneath that, it says swimming pools for guests. All recreational center family pools for guests of all ages can go to as a guest. All recreation center adult pools for guests over 30. So in other words, for the adult pools, you have to be over 30. And I'm going to flash a little card up here so you can take a look at these whole and you can take a picture of this because it has some other regulations on there. Country club pools you can call. The thing is the sports pools are not open, and you'll see that right here. Sports pools are not open to guests, and the big that is because a lot of people go and these pools are full when they're doing activities there, and they want to make sure residents there. Also, golf courses. Make sure your golfing friends and everybody are aware of the regulations, i.e., something like collared shirts for men. And if you read down below here a little bit, it says you may also use the following facilities when they are not in use for league or organized play: shuffleboard, bocce courts, pickleball, tennis courts, so on and so on, and billiard tables, Katie Bells. Katie Bells. Come on, guys, update these forms. For those of you that don't know, Katie Bells is no longer there anymore. All right, now what we're going to do is open up right in the center here, click on guest I policy, and you can see on here, I may hit a couple of these really quick, but as you can see on here, this is a lot of information about eligibility. So it talks about the application and how you can get those in person right here. And the main center is 984 Old Mill Run, which is Sumter up there in the square. And there is a satellite office. And any of these goes over any regional rec centers. And I'm going to show you how to fill out an online here in a second. There are eligibility requirements, which I talked about, son. You can stop this, take a look at this. And issuance of the cards. There is like a 30-day restriction on there. And kind of moving down to the next page, I'm not going to go through all these. Big thing is you need to have your guest ID card with you with ID. And it is really important that you do this. Maybe not so much at the pickleball courts and stuff like that because they're not there all day. But if you try to get into something inside at one of the rec centers, you are going to have to show your ID card. And they have little scanners now that they're using to facilitate this. There are age requirements about getting a guest card. Anybody over the age of 1 should have a guest card. And it says all approved guests 19 years of age of older must have a photo identification when using a district amenity. So you need to have a photo ID card with you. If you are 18 and under, accompanied by somebody. So you can't send your 18-year-old, 17-year-old into one of the rec centers to use the facility because they will, quote, card you. And the last page here simply talks about penalties for misuse of cards, and they just want to warn you that eventually, if you have a few infractions, they will take your ID card from you. Going back to this page, if you are somebody that is looking to get a guest pass for somebody, first of all, if you're going to do it online, you need to do it a few days ahead of time. But if you go to guest information back over here where we were before and go to guest ID card services, it will take you to click on this and it will take you to this page. And this is the guest ID application. You need to put in your resident ID number and then your PIN number, and that will take you over to this page. After you check in on the other page, this is what you'll come into. And this is basically like the manual form, the paper form that you got to fill out. Basically, what you'll need is all the information on here. So it is the birth date info so that they can coordinate back and forth with the photo ID that they're supposed to carry. And then it says where you're going to pick it up. And it has the guest's home address. And if they've visited the Villages before, like I said, if it's a reoccurring thing, this is kind of nice to use because it will simply start to fill it out for you in those specific blocks. I know this looks totally different, and I am dumping this in on this video. The video is already done and loaded up on YouTube, but I thought I'd add this in there because it hadn't been published yet. And I just ran by Zelle, and I had to pick up a guest pass for somebody. I'll put a copy of it up here. But you can actually see this is what it looks like. It also has a lot of the kind of hours and kind of rules that you need to pay attention to. But you can do a screenshot of this, and that'll give you a nice little notepad of things you can and can't do. Anyway, that's it. That's why I'm kind of dressed like this. I just threw it in there for the last second, and then I'm going to reload this back up. So now, back to the regularly scheduled programming. If you've been watching these videos, you know that I've done some videos on the dog parks, but there's also some rules, and I'll put it right here, as far as the dog parks go and age as far as guests go. It says a dog park users must be 13 years of age, so you can't send your 10-year-old down to the dog park. There's obvious reasons for that, and that's because of controlling the animals and stuff. They must have, if they're older than 13, they must have their village ID card and identification with them. Guests 13 to 18 years old must be accompanied by a village resident or guest 19 years of age or older. So please keep that in mind as far as the dog parks go. And one other thing I want to bring up while I'm sitting here talking about it is I just went to a safety meeting with golf carts and learned some very interesting things there. So these are some kind of words of warning. I'm not sure everybody knows it, but I'll expand on this because I'm going to do a golf cart safety thing here very soon, a video. But the golf cart ages for, especially with guests, and that's why I'm saying this, is going to go from 14 to 16 years old. And I guess they're going to be kind of strict with that. And that means that the driving age at a minimum is going to be 16. Now, here's the thing. If you're driving around with somebody, say 13 years old in your golf cart and you're sitting on the right-hand side, the sheriff's department told me that they will pull you over if they think they're too young. They will cite the adult or the resident on the right-hand side that's letting them drive for allowing an underage or non-qualified person drive a motor vehicle. And that comes with a little bit of a stiff fine. Also, if the person is caught driving the golf cart underage, so let's say they are 14 years old, they will be cited, and this will also preclude them possibly from getting their driver's license on time. So you really kind of want to heed that. Please don't let underage kids drive, or just because you're sitting in the right-hand side. And you may want to review all those rules before you have guests come down here that are underage and don't have a driver's license. Well, that's about as boring subject as you can get, I think, really. But, you know, the golf cart is our way of life, and that is just a fact down here. Big thing to kind of recap on that is 2 ways to get a ID card. You can either just walk right into one of the rec centers during those specific times and pick up an application and give it to them. And I believe you can get it right back from them right there. Or you can, a few days ahead of time, go ahead and do it online, which is a lot easier. Trust me, I've done it both ways. And especially once you get somebody into the system that's already been there, this kind of remembers who that person is. It's kind of easy to figure out. The golf cart thing, you know, having guests here and letting them drive around the golf cart, especially if they are underage, to me, the liability would never be worth it, because I'm sure there's an attorney out there that's going to dig way into your pockets. Not only that, sheriff's going to come after you if, God forbid, anything ever happened. And we got a hard enough time controlling those babies at our age anyway, so the last thing we want to do is have a bunch of underage kids running around in those golf carts. Have some respect for your neighbors and just don't do it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And you can either join me back here on YouTube, or hopefully I will see you out there running around the villages. Hey, I got one thing to say to you. A lot of people stop me walking around here, and I really love it. I love talking to you. If sometimes it seems like I'm blowing you off, I am really not blowing you off. Either I got something going on in some headsets, or I'm on the phone, or I'm going to some place that I have to be there. Otherwise, I'll be happy to talk to you all day long. I can do that, no problem, unfortunately. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me. I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, and be safe out there in those golf carts. Who can get guest passes, and some of the age restrictions for people that guest pass. There was so yeah, doggone it. Ah!